Welcome to Relationship Exposed. In today's video, you'll witness a story where betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was contractual, calculated, and devastating. This is the unraveling of a marriage where love was once real, but was later eclipsed by strategy, ambition, and revenge. Let's dive in. It all started with a simple document, 8 pages, typed neatly, tucked inside a manila envelope, slid across a polished mahogany desk, a prenuptial agreement. At first glance, it seemed standard: protect individual assets, outline post-divorce terms, and avoid future litigation. But buried in the fine print, intentionally understated, were clauses that would later turn a devoted husband into a broken man, and a once honest relationship into a cautionary tale. Her name was Veronica. She was everything Daniel ever dreamed of: elegant, intelligent, graceful in conversation, and dangerously charming. She had the kind of beauty that didn't need validation, the kind that aged like scandalous wine, richer, deeper, more intoxicating with time. They met during a charity gala, both there for causes they pretended to care about more than they actually did. Daniel came from wealth. His family owned a chain of resorts spread across the coastlines of Europe. But unlike his trust fund cousins, Daniel worked. He had turned one of the failing resort branches into the company's top performer. He wasn't arrogant. He was dangerous in a different way: confident, emotionally intelligent, and too trusting. Veronica knew all of that. She wasn't after his heart. She was after legacy, not hers, his. She studied everything about him in their first 6 months together: his vulnerabilities, his loyalty, his soft spot for love letters and old-fashioned values. She presented herself as the missing piece to his world. Perfect in every way. The kind of woman you don't question when she says, "Don't worry, baby, I've got you." So when she proposed they sign a prenup to protect him, Daniel didn't resist. "I want you to know I'm not after your money," she had said, tucking her hand into his on a rainy night in Tuscany. "I would never touch what's yours if this ever goes wrong." He kissed her forehead. "That's why I trust you." But trust, in this story, is the first casualty. 5 years into their marriage, Daniel had handed over more than just his heart. Veronica had slowly begun managing parts of the business: social branding, exclusive partnerships, and media coverage. She had a sharp eye for influence, and her curated image helped the business reach new clientele. Daniel felt lucky to have a wife who added value to his empire. But then came the changes. She started dressing differently, more striking, not for him, never for him, but for the cameras, the attention. She'd go on solo trips to build partnerships, but her phone would be mysteriously off for days. And then there were the text messages. Daniel hadn't meant to read them. It was an accident. She'd left her tablet on the kitchen counter one morning, screen still glowing, open to a thread labeled Milan Shoot. But what he read had nothing to do with modeling or marketing. "You're the one I think about when I'm pretending to fall asleep next to him. Don't worry, he's signed everything. He's locked in. Soon we'll be free." Daniel froze. He didn't confront her that night, or the night after. He needed clarity. Proof. So, he called his lawyer. What followed was a legal dissection of the prenup, and what they found was sickening. Veronica had crafted clauses, subtle, surgical, during their engagement, cleverly wrapped in legalese. If Daniel were to file for divorce, she would be entitled to 45% of all resort revenue generated during the marriage, which she conveniently increased with her campaigns. A Manhattan penthouse they jointly purchased under her name, but with his money, and full rights to a media brand she launched using the resort's image. But if she filed, she walked away with barely anything. It was a trap, and Daniel had stepped into it willingly. The confrontation wasn't explosive, it was quiet, cold. He waited for her in their sunlit kitchen, steaming cup of black coffee untouched in front of him. When she walked in, wearing his university sweatshirt and a fake smile, he simply asked, "How long have you been planning this?" She blinked. "What are you talking about?" He slid the prenup across the table. "You want to run away with him?" Fine, but you won't take what I've built. The mask slipped for a moment, just a flash. A flicker of the real her. I told you, she said slowly. I'm not after your money, I'm after what's mine. Daniel stood, his voice shaking but firm. You were never after me. You just played the long game, and you think because I signed that piece of paper, you own me? Veronica leaned in, voice silky. No, I don't own you, I own what you own. The next few weeks were war. She lawyered up. Aggressively, her legal team filed motion after motion, exploiting every clause, every gray area. She painted herself as the mastermind behind the resort's success. She spun narratives of emotional neglect, loneliness, sacrifice. Daniel, for the first time, saw how far someone would go, not to win love, but to win control. But Daniel wasn't naive anymore. He fought back. Quietly, strategically, he froze accounts, sold assets before they could be contested, transferred business titles to a private trust under his sister's name. And then, he pulled the final card. He leaked everything: emails, texts, audio recordings of her meetings with her lover, discussing taking the empire piece by piece. He released them anonymously to journalists, exposing not just her betrayal, but her calculated manipulation. Suddenly, the media darling turned into a pariah. Brands cut ties, sponsors dropped her, her reputation crumbled, and the court ruled in Daniel's favor. On the final day of the divorce hearing, as Veronica sat across from him in the courtroom, no longer in designer heels, but in neutral flats, no longer the glamorous strategist, but just a woman whose schemes had unraveled, she looked at him and said only 3 words: "You ruined me." Daniel didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just whispered back, "You did that yourself." But the story doesn't end there. Because what happens after revenge, after victory? Healing is slow. Daniel didn't date for a long time. He stopped attending galas. He became quieter, more measured. He focused on rebuilding not just his business, but himself. Eventually, he met someone. Not someone dazzling or ambitious. Someone kind, honest. A woman who didn't ask for anything but gave everything freely. This time, there were no documents, no contracts, just trust, earned, not given. And Veronica? Last anyone heard, she was living overseas, alone, still fighting lawsuits from brands that had dropped her, still clinging to the idea that she deserved more. But karma doesn't take requests, it delivers what's owed. And for Veronica, that meant watching everything she tried to steal turn to ash in her hands. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about awakening, about how love, when used as a weapon, will always backfire, about how signing your heart away without reading the fine print can cost you more than money. It can cost you your peace, your soul, your time. But Daniel's story is also a warning. Even the most genuine hearts need protection. Even the strongest love should be built on transparency, not strategy. Because when the mask slips and the prenup turns into a weapon, it's not love anymore. It's war. If you found this story as gripping as we did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Relationship Exposed. What would you do if you found out your marriage was nothing more than a slow-burning heist? Let us know below. And remember, sometimes the biggest betrayal is the one written in ink, signed with a kiss, and sealed with a lie.